बस ठीक है. So basically, we are now today we are going to discuss three types of otitis media. That's acute suppurative otitis media, chronic suppurative otitis media, and also otitis media with effluent. So as the name shows, that acute suppurative otitis media, it is an acute inflammation of middle ear cleft by pyogenic organism or infective organism. And what do you mean by middle ear cleft? Basically, in the middle ear cleft, there's the addition of the eustachian tube along with the attack, antrum. This basically forms the middle ear cleft. So what is the etiology? Etiology is the infants and children of lower socioeconomic group. Normally it is present in those that they are the people living together, and some definitely have viral upper respiratory tract infection, and then pyogenic organism. Of course, as the name says, it is acute suppurative otitis media. So what are the routes of infection? As you can see in this picture, basically this condition is commonly occurs in the children. An infant, we know that the eustachian tube is the most important uh, organ which can pass this inflammation. In the case of infant, huh? In the case of infant, the difference between eustachian tube between infant and adult is that, as you can see in this picture, that the eustachian tube of the infant is shorter, horizontal, and so infection can easily get into the middle ear. While in the case of adults, we can see the difference in the eustachian tube. So basically, infants again shorter, wider, and straighter infants, and it also occurs in those patients who are who are doing swimming and diving, and this can also occur from the wide external ear. That is, if there is any already pre-existing traumatic perforation in the tympanic membrane, or sometimes in the case of bloodborne. What are predisposing factors? You can see in this picture. There anything which affects normal function of the eustachian tube leads to biliary infection, and it can come from if the patient of the child is having any tonsillitis, adenoiditis, any rhinitis, sinusitis, nasal allergy, cleft palate is again very prone. Those patients who are having cleft palate, they are prone to get these infections routinely. And of course, tumors of the nasopharynx and infant children, recurrent attacks of common cold, upper respiratory tract infection, measles, diphtheria, as we have seen in our scenario. So again, there is a difference between bacteriology between acute suppurative otitis media and also the chronic. You need to learn it by heart, because in the case of acute, there is a Streptococcus pneumoniae commonest, H influenza 20%, Moraxella catarrhalis, Streptococcus pyogenes, Streptococcus staph aureus, and aeruginosa. While in the case of chronic suppurative otitis media, the most important positive organism is Pseudomonas organosa. So if scenario comes, you need to understand either they are talking about the acute suppurative otitis media or the chronic. So what is the underlying pathology in the case of acute suppurative otitis media? There are four stages. You must have, I think, learned by now the stage of the tubal occlusion. First of all, as we have seen that the most of the cause is there is blockage of the eustachian tube. So what happened is edema and hyperemia of the eustachian tube, which causes blockage of the tube, and then of course there's a this negative intratympanic pressure would be increased due to absorption of the air. So what happened? When you examine the patient, you would have a retracted tympanic membrane, and in this, you can see whenever the retraction of the tympanic membrane occurs, then there is a basically handle of Malleus looks shortened and lateral process. This is the lateral Malleus which is more prominent. And while the cone of light, which is normally present over here, is absent, and tympanic membrane looks dull. Symptoms, of course, the symptom would be deafness. The patient would be having hearing loss or deafness, earache, and signs retracted tympanic membrane. And this, of course, when there's this will show when you will offer him the either tympanic test. This will show that there is a conductive deafness. While the stage of pre-suppuration, as you can see, what happened, that the tubal occlusion increases, and now at this stage, pyogenic organism invade the middle ear. And there would be, as you can see, there's a redness, hyperemia, and exudates in the middle ear. Tympanic membrane will be seen as congested. Symptoms, of course, as the congestion increases, the earache would increase, deafness would be increased. Sometimes patient would be having tinnitus. There's a high grade fever. Along with this congestion, there's a high-grade fever, and restless child would be very, sleepless and restless. If you see in the, with the help of otoscope, and then we would have partial appearance of the tympanic, as you can see in this picture. So again, the conductive deafness would be increased. The next stage is suppuration. Of course, there is the acute suppurative otitis media. So now the stage it comes is suppuration. As you can see in this stage, what happens is a rupture of the tympanic membrane. There is a small perforation. If you see, there is a small perforation present in the tympanic membrane, the central part of the tympanic membrane. And now at this stage, the patient would be febrile, and also there's all loss of landmarks and bulging and congested tympanic membrane. Along with sometimes you can see that there's a suppuration coming out from this perforation. And then the stage of resolution, it means that the condition is resolving at this stage. There's a release of pus, and symptom would be subsided, and there won't be any earache in the patient. And when you see, then there is a small perforation present with a clear edges, and it would be a clear if the stage is resolved at this stage, then the edges would be very clean and clear in this case. If the perforation is very small, then this stage will later on will help in the closure of the tympanic membrane. Now, if this stage doesn't occur, if organisms are, there are two conditions over here. Either organisms are more virulent or patient resistance is poor. Then the infection does not resolve, then complication will occur. And these are the complications of the acute suppurative otitis media, which we would discuss later on in another lecture. But we need to know that we have divided those complications into two parts. That is intratemporal, that the complication confined to the temporal bone, and intracranial, that it has passed into the brain. Intratemporal complications include mastocytitis, facial nerve paralysis, labyrinthitis, pitrositis. While the intracranial complications, they include extradural abscess, subdural abscess, brain abscess, meningitis, lateral sinus thrombosis, and aortic hydrocephalus. So, what is the treatment? In the case of treatment of the acute suppurative otitis, when the patient, most of the cases, children, they are coming with a severe excruciating pain, and of course, all the symptoms, that the high grade fever and the TLC count is very increased. So, we have to give them a symptomatic treatment. That is, of course, in the case of suppurative otitis media, ampicillin or penicillin group are the most important treatment strategy. Antibiotic in the case of acute suppurative otitis media. So we have to give antibiotics, and then of course symptomatic treatment, the analgesics, antibiotics, decongestant nasal drops, just to, because there is the edema of the eustachian tube. So just to combat that disease, combat that complication, we need to give them decongestant nasal. It also helps to relieve the edema of the eustachian tube. Oral decongestant are quite helpful. And ear toilet, continuous ear toilet, if there is anything, then it would also again helpful in the case of acute suppurative otitis media. And in some cases, local heat helps. If you just keep hot or warm clothes in it also helps to relieve the congestion. And then if these medical treatment doesn't help, then we will definitely grow. In the case of stage of suppuration, when it does not, there is no perforation occurs, then we will go for myringotomy. Myringotomy means incising the drum to release pus. Basically, we are going to surgically incise the drum, and this definitely helps when there is a bulging. There is three conditions: either there is a tympanic membrane bulge with acute pain, incomplete resolution with conductive deafness if it occurs more than 3 months, and persistent effusion in middle ear beyond 3 months. Then we are going to give a stab or incise the drum in the entero-inferior part, not in the posterior-superior. We never give the posterior-superior, because in that case we are going to invade more infection by by ill treating with the ossicle. So we always give most of the time entero-inferior part of the NCA. So another condition, there is acute necrotizing otitis media. This condition occurs in the case when the children is having measles, influenza, or scarlet fever. So, but in the case again, the positive organism is different. That is beta hemolytic streptococcus, which is this is very important in your MCQ also, which beta hemolytic streptococcus, and it also occurs with these conditions most of the time. So what happened? Clinical features are this rapid destruction of whole of the tympanic membrane with this annulus mucosa of promontory, and there's of course second case diffuse prurigia. Healing is followed by fibrosis and ingrowth of some squamous epithelium from the meatus. This is also caused the secondary acquired cholesteatoma. It is the cause of the secondary, chronic suppurative otitis media. So what are treatment again? We need to give them antibiotics, and also we will go for surgical treatment that is called cortical mastectomy. We will discuss later on what is the difference between cortical and the radical mastectomy. Now another condition. This was the condition with suppurative otitis media. Now the condition comes that is called if it does not resolve. If it resolves temporarily, but there is the accumulation of the serous non-purulent sterile liquid in the middle ear. And this is an insidious condition characterized by accumulation of non-purulent sterile liquid in the middle ear. Normally, again, this condition is most commonly present in the school-going children, and the parents, either parents bring their children to the doctors, or teachers complain to their parents that he's not listening properly, he's facing some problem in hearing. So you need to check this child properly. So whenever they come, either what is the underlying pathology, either again the same malfunction of eustachian tube, fails to aerate middle ear, or fails to drain fluid from the middle ear, or increased activity of middle ear mucosa. In this case, there is a formation of more mucus behind the intact tympanic membrane. Again, these are the etiology. Either there is a malfunction of the eustachian tube, allergy, unresolved acute otitis media, or viral infection. These are the conditions. And symptoms, again, I have told the most common presenting symptom is hearing loss, deafness. And as you can see that these conditions normally occurs in the children. So what would happen? Of course, they are not efficiently or effectively attentive in the class. They would have delayed and defective speech due to deafness and middle ear fluids. If we examine this patient under, with the help of otoscope or under microscope, then what would happen? Then, of course, there is a tympanic membrane dull, maybe yellowish or bluish in some cases, but most of the time when we see that the tympanic membrane is dull, sometimes retracted, fluid levels of bubbles may be coming, but the most important thing is there is an intact tympanic membrane. So the most important test which is helpful in diagnosing this condition is tuning fork test. We can do it in the OPD, and this will show definitely conductive deafness. And while at the same time we will order pure tone audiometry if the child is more than 3 years, and tympanometry and exotestoid. These pure tone audiometry definitely conductive. This is show there is a conductive hearing loss. As you can see, there is a air-bone gap present. So this will show that around 40 decibel of conductive hearing loss. While in the case of tympanometry, there's a flat type B graph. There's a this type of graph. You can see this flat graph which occurs on the tympanic membrane. Next semester definitely cloudy cell. There's due to fluid. And whenever because in the mastoid there should be present air. When the air is replaced by fluid, then of course there's a cloudy or this type of opaque mastoid will occur. So what is the treatment? Of course, in this case, first we have to give the trial of the medical treatment. That is, we need to give them a long-term decongestant, antiallergic, antibiotic, middle ear aeration, Valsalva. If the patient understands, then we need to give them Valsalva. We need to tell them to do the Valsalva exercises. Yes, we can do with the polytrization. Catheterization can also be helpful in this case. And in the case of children, we also tell them that continuous chewing gum for repeated swallowing, because we know that eustachian tube open during swallowing, yawning. So we need to tell them that they should do some kind of exercise in this case. Otherwise, if this condition doesn't subside more than 3 months after getting all the medical treatment, then we will definitely go for surgical intervention. And surgical intervention, because we know that their tympanic membrane is intact, so we will go for meningotomy. And also there is a installation of the ventilation tube, that is for grommet insertion. So the ideal treatment is meningotomy along with grommet insertion, and this will give the continuous aeration. And if the thick fluid is present, then it will come out with the meningotomy, and then we will place the grommet for continuous ventilation. And if it doesn't, in the case of cholesterol granuloma, then we can go for tympanotomy or mastectomy or surgical treatment of positive factors. Definitely, associated factors in most of the cases they are presented with either adenoiditis. So we will go for either adenodectomy, tonsillectomy, or maxillary sinus irrigation. We need to treat the cause as well. So you can see in this case, this is a normal ear. You can see the light and some fluid, then there's a bubble formation, diffusion, and then this is a treatment. This is meningotomy and this is a grommet insertion. So what would happen if chronic secretory otitis media? What are the sequel or continuation of the chronic secretory otitis media? And what would we get if we can have atrophic tympanic membrane? A fibrous layer, that is the central layer of tympanic membrane, is dissolved and it becomes atrophic and retracted into the middle layer. Ossicular necrosis, long process of incus, is definitely the most first organ which dissolved is the long process of incus. The necrosis occurs because it has got a very little blood supply. And tympanosclerosis, there is a hyalinization and calcification of middle fibrous layer of the chip. When we examine the patient under microscope or with the help of otoscope, then we will see that they're having chalky white patches are seen in the tympanic membrane ossicles and joints. And this will later on, initially this will, doesn't cause much effect, but later on it is associated with the conductive hearing loss, and as well as there's a fixation of the joints in the case of tympanosclerosis. So what about the retraction pockets in sclerotoma? Thin atrophic parts of the tympanic membrane form retraction pockets in attic. This is the cause, one of the cause of formation of the cholesteatoma. And ultimately, definitely cholesteatoma will occur. What is cholesterol granuloma? You can have MCQ or a small part of one of the part of the question on the cholesterol granuloma. It is due to state of secretions in middle ear and mastoid. It is a mass of granulation tissue with foreign body giant cells in reaction to long-standing secretions or hemorrhage in middle ear. Tympanic membrane looks blue, and on histology, when we will go for histopathology, then squamous epithelium and keratins is never found in cholesterol granuloma as compared to cholesteatoma, which is the one of the characteristic feature of the cholesteatoma. So recurrent acute asphyxia, it is one of the conditions it is also commonly occur in the young children around 6 months, 6 years. And in this case, they would have, recurrent upper respiratory tract infections, recurrent sinusitis, any cause, velopharyngeal insufficiency, adenoid, any, focus of infection present over there, they will have recurrent acute attacks in media during between the attacks, if they are symptom free. So management is, of course, first treat the cause and then give them symptomatic treatment. And if doesn't resolve with the medical treatment, then we'll go for surgical intervention. Parotiditis media is one of the, again, it is called otitis media barotrauma. And it is a non-suppurative condition resulting from failure of eustachian tube to maintain medullary pressure at ambient atmospheric pressure. It's mostly during the flights we would have this condition. So what would happen? Again, important, if middle ear pressure is high, then nasopharynx, and the air escapes easily and passively. When nasopharyngeal pressure is high, then middle ear tube have to be opened actively by contraction. So basically, what would happen? Sudden negative pressure will occur, and this will cause a retraction of the tympanic membrane. And very rarely that the rupture of the oval or round window will occur, but the patient will present with a severe earache, hearing loss, tinnitus, vertigo after that. And when we examine, then the tympanic membrane would be retracted, congested, and sometimes, ruptured, sometimes intact tympanic membrane with air bubbles or hemorrhagic infusion in the middle ear. So audiometry definitely show conductive hearing loss. And treatment is again symptomatic treatment that we have given in every condition. So we will also, in this case, if it doesn't subside, then we again will go for meningotomy. So one of the question can come, how will you unlock the tube? Answer is meningotomy. This is the surgical procedure to unlock the tube. Prevention, of course, it is very difficult, but avoid air travel in upper respiratory tract infection. If you are traveling, then you need to swallow during descent, sweets and chewing gum, and don't sleep during descent. And the Valsalva exercise during descent, you can do. It is quite helpful, and sometimes you can free, you can use your anti-allergies during the travel. It will help. Then now coming to the chronic middle ear disease. What is cholesteatoma? As we can see that in the case of middle ear, there's no keratinized squamous epithelium in the middle ear cleft, nowhere. But whenever it comes, then this will cause the cholesteatoma, that is presence of the keratinized stratified squamous epithelium in the middle ear cleft. That is the skin in a wrong place, you can also say. So there are basically two parts. I just they one they, but is one is called matrix, which is made up of the stratified epithelium. The other one is keratin debris. So we need to classify this disease. There are basically three types of cholesteatoma, chronic middle ear disease. First is congenital. The other one is acquired primary, and the third one is acquired secondary. So there are few theories behind it. What is, first of all, we can revise a little bit three terminologies. There is a hypertrophy, increase in cell size; hyperplasia, increase in cell number. So, and metaplasia, in this, one adult cell type is replaced by another cell type, which then becomes abnormal for that case. Cause is chronic irritation, chronic inflammation. The aim of this change is to replace by more resistant cells against inflammation. So basically, again, this is basically the structure of the cholesteatoma. This is middle ear cleft. You need to understand that the whole cells form the middle ear cleft. And this is your cholesteatoma matrix and keratin mass, everything is present in this. Is the from the cholesteatoma while during the surgical intervention. You can see that this type of flakes, they are coming out after mastite exploration. This is cholesteatoma. Okay. And this can be present everywhere. You can see this is the hallmark of cholesteatoma, that this is present in the middle ear, that can eventually covers this due to its bone eroding capacity. It will cover the whole these bones and small bones of the ears, and this will cause, then they can easily enter into the brain. So the whole complication, the most important complication, can occur with the chronic hepatitis media. Congenital cholesteatoma. Basically, congenital, as the name shows, that it arises from the embryonic epidermal cell rest in middle ear cleft, and it is present in the middle ear. The three parts where it is mostly located at the middle ear: petrous apex and cerebropontinous (CPA angle), which is we commonly say. And symptoms are deafness, ear discharge, and signs of conductive deafness, and you can see mass behind the intact tympanic membrane. And of course, as it is a congenital, sometimes it is you can't find it. Sometimes it is commonly you can find in a routine checkup. The patient won't have any much signs or symptoms. So in beyond epidermal cell cells, then they change into stratified squamous epithelium, forming congenital cholesteatoma. What is primary acquired cholesteatoma? It means, as a name, there is a difference between primary and secondary acquired. Primary means it is called primary, as there is no history of previous itis media or a pre-existing perforation. So there are some theories regarding this. That is, of course, one of the, I have already told you, the one of the important theories, retraction pocket, invagination of pars flextra. It's a Whitnach theory है. And persistent negligation that cause the retraction pocket, which accumulates keratin debris when infected the keratin mass expands. Another theory is basal cell hyperplasia. Dewey's theory, this is the proliferation of the basal layer of the pars flacida induced by subclinical childhood infection. And there would be a expanding cholesteatoma then breaks through past flacida, forming an attic perforation. And then squamous metaplasia. This again, of course, is a change of the epithelium from the keratinizing squamous epithelium, change keratinized squamous epithelium due to subclinical infection. These are the theories. You can see the retraction pockets of a form. This is the retraction pocket. This is the cell hyperplasia, fibrous layer. This is the metaplasia. You can see this is the normal epithelium and the change is squamous. And what is the secondary acquired ecclesiotrauma? Secondary, it is called secondary. There is already a pre-existing marginal perforation pars sensa or large central perforation involving tympanic aneurysm with history of otitis media. Again, the theories for this epithelial migration as well as the squamous metaplasia. So, what is the hallmark of the ecclesiotrauma? That the hallmark of ecclesiotrauma is bone eroding or bone destruction capacity of the ecclesiotrauma, because the cholesterol expands in the line of least resistance and enzymatic bone dissection, and this will cause basically the whole enzymes which is present in the they are main positive organism, or you can say that the cause for the bone destruction. And then what would happen? They destroy the ossicles, bony labyrinth, facial canal. They can sinus plate, tegment tympani, and cause complication, either both intratemporal and also the intracranial complications. So the enzymes which are present are collagenase, phosphatase, proteolytic enzymes, and they are very, very much, bone. They have bone eroding capacities. Chronic suppurative stress media, it is a long-standing inflammation of the part or whole of the middle ear cleft, characterized by ear discharge and the permanent perforation. The permanent perforation, you need to understand that there is a temporary perforation we can see in the acute suppurative stress media, with after resolution it can be healed. But in the case, once the perforation is permanent, then its edges becomes permanent with the formation of the squamous epithelium. So it won't be healed up later on. So we would have chronic suppurative, two types of chronic suppurative otitis media. That is pubotympanic, which is also called safe or benign type, and the other one is anticoantral type, which is unsafe or dangerous type, because it can cause all the complications. And this safe type, they are not mostly associated with the complications. This is basically involve the inferior part of the middle ear, while it involves the posterior superior part of marginal perforation with the granulation and cause complications. This is the difference. You need to learn it by heart. That is comparison of two types. That is puberty, because it can come in your SCQs as well as in your YBAS. So they are puberty panic and epicardial, safe and unsafe. The difference is basically on discharge. It has got diffuse mucus and it is odorless. While in the case of etiquette, it is scanty, purulent, foul smelling, very pungent smelling. This etiquette type. Perforation, this is mostly anterior central parts, small, medial, and large perforation, but it normally attains the central position of the tympanic. While in the case of etiquette, it is etic or marginal. When the central perforation becomes so enlarged that it involves the margins, then it is called marginal perforation. Normally, it is a costo-superior perforation. Granulations are uncommon. It is mostly common in the epithelial. While whenever the presentation is polyp, then it is pale or it is mostly associated with the blood or fleshy type, red color. Cholesterol are definitely absent over here, while in the case of it is the main most important characteristic of the epithelial are unsafe type. Complications rare. It is very much common in the case of anticoagulation, and definitely it was audiogram shows conductive deafness. It will show mixed deafness as well, because it involves the intracranial involvement also for the disease. So tumor depending again commonly in the childhood, follow the acute media, and these are the different causative causes present in the case of puberty panic. Either it is sending information, patient is having adenotonsillitis or sinusitis, or persistent otorrhea due to food allergies. Clinical purpose features are again ear discharge. We have already told that it is non-offensive, non-purulent, mucopurulent, but constant, intermittent, definite, conductive. and most important decibel. Perforation, mostly these are the different types of perforation which occur in the, but it is more always confined to the central part of the tympanic membrane. We have already discussed these things: polyps, ossicular chain, tympanosquares, chalky white patches. If there is a resolution of the occur, then there also we can see in the intact tympanic the chalky white patches in the tympanic due to degeneration and calcification middle fibers there of the tympanic, and it causes inductive deafness. And later on fibrosis and adhesion due to retraction of the tympanic membrane. Again, bacteriology, aerobic organisms, Staph aureus, Proteus, E. coli, Pseudomonas organza. These are the important organisms present in the chronic subretinal media, and sometimes anaerobes also present. So, what investigation we need to identify this disease is examination under microscope is very helpful because it will give you detailed examination. Either if you can't see any small attic perforation with the help of otoscope, you can easily see under microscope. So it is a mandatory examination which should occur, which should be done in every case of the chronic subretinal media, and to confirm your findings as well, or that otoscopic findings. So, what will you do? That of course that the ear discharge should be sent for culture and sensitivity, so you can select the proper antibiotics. Audiogram definitely will show or conductive deafness, and also degree and grade of the hearing loss. Pure tone audiometry will show. Also, XMS definitely bone destruction or opacity. This is, you can say, these are central and marginal perforations. This is basically attic perforation. You can see. This is marginal perforation. These are different types of the central perforations. Now, management of tubotympanic type of otitis media is what are basically aims of the management is to control infections, eliminate ear discharge, to protect hearing loss by surgical means. There is the main these are the major aims of the treatment. So again, we will start with the medical treatment. We will give first ear toilet continuous, and ear drops. We need to prescribe proper steroidal antibiotic ear drops for a longer time, and becoming antibiotic course for acute stage of the symptoms, and precaution keep water. This is the most important precaution in measure we have need to tell the patient that they need to keep their ears away from the water, and of course they can use rubber inserts or cotton woods during swimming or bathing. No hard nose blowing, never, because this will also cause retrograde infections. Treatment of contributory causes like tonsils, adenoids, of course, any contributory cause which can cause this condition, we need to treat that first. And if this medical treatment is helpful, then fine. If it doesn't, then we will go for surgical intervention. And what are the different methods for this? That we have to, of course, if there's any polyp or condition, we need to remove it under vision, or we will never avert the polyp because it may be arising from facial nerves, stapes, horizontal canal, and will cause complication. So reconstructive surgery, of course, laryngoplasty, if we are doing laryngotomy or we are removing the polyp, is a whole present in the tympanic. We need to cover it with the laryngoplasty, with the help of any. Um, just to keep the ear dry. Aticoantral type of chronic subretinal dysuria, it involves posterior part of middle ear cleft, attic, antrum, posterior tympanum, mastoid, and is associated with calcitroma, which because of its bone eroding property causes risk of serious complications. It is also called unstable type. So main calcitroma, and due to its bone eroding capacity, this will cause the complications. Again, the underlying pathology is that is either definitely there is the presence of the calcitroma, osteitis and granulation tissue present, polyp, red fleshy polyp is present, and ossicular necrosis. Due to osteitis and osteitis, there is a ossicular necrosis, and this will come in your MCQ. Which part is the most prone to get necrosis? That is the long process of the incus. And then, of course, cholesteatoma sometimes, in most of the cases, chronic, sometimes may bridge the gap between the ossicle and the cholesteatoma during when there's no acute infection. Then the patient would say that we can hear better because those cases we can say that it is due to the cholesteatoma. They are called cholesteatoma hearers. What is cholesteatoma? We have already discussed this cholesterol granuloma that basically and bacteriology you should know is Staph aureus, Proteus, E. coli, Pseudomonas. So what are clinical features? The symptoms with the patient presentation would be again ear discharge, which is scanty, foul smelling due to bone destruction. And you need, whenever this scenario will come, you need to understand that these symptoms they make the difference between the acute and chronic suppurative otitis media or pubertympanic and anticoagulant type of the chronic suppurative otitis media. So hearing loss again, conductive hearing loss, and sometimes bleeding occurs if there is a polyp or granulation present there. So if we examine the patient, then there is a retraction pocket. It is mostly present in the posterior superior part, and I have already told you we need to go for do it under microscope. Cholesteatoma, pearly white plaque, sometimes we can see and sub from the retraction pocket, and perforation definitely there are thick or posterior superior margin perforation. You can see this is. Whenever you do the otoscopy, always smell that otoscope. So it also makes a difference between the pubertypanic anticoagulant. There's a very foul smelling, pungent smell occur whenever you smell the patient with the who is having this cholesteatol. So again, investigation, we have already discussed it, all these that we need to examine the patient under microscope. And of course, it will reveal the whole picture very clearly. It will also show any other scanty perforation, attic perforation, and sometimes it also it will confirm your findings about the size and extent, cholesterol granuloma, and condition the ossicles you can also see because if there is a large perforation, then you can easily see that the ossicles are present over there, and condition of the ossicles you can comment on it. Of course, we will go for pure tone audiometry. This will help in the assessment of the hearing, type and degree of the hearing loss. X-ray mastoids definitely helpful in showing that there's a bone destruction in the attic and antrum, low-lying dura. Yes, and this is whenever we go for surgical intervention, we need to have a CT scan of temporal bone because this will give us the condition of the dura mater. Dura mater, which is the first covering of the brain, protective covering of the brain. And if it is low-lying dura and we are doing surgically and we can easily rupture it, then that is going to be very difficult for us, and we are spreading infection with the brain, and then it would be very difficult after that. So, of course, antipose, sometimes lateral sinus, there is a lateral sinus, sometimes very superiorly present. If we continuously drill during surgical intervention, then what would happen? There is a can't control bleeding with this lateral sinus. And of course, culture and sensitivity of ear discharge for proper selection of the antibiotic. You need to learn what are the basically why you are offering all these investigations. Whenever the question comes in your prof, then they could definitely ask for the justification. You are not going to do all these investigations without any justification. So you need to know why you are ordering culture and sensitivity, why you are doing CT scan of temporal bone. These are not very, simple tests. And whenever you order these tests, you need to have some justification in your mind. So again, treatment. The only treatment, the gold standard treatment for different type of chronic suppurative anesthesia is surgical intervention. And what are the aims? Basically, to make the ear safe and to preserve or reconstructive hearing. That are the two main types. And this is the basically main surgical treatment is the treatment of choice for the anticoagulant type of chronic suppurative media. Basically, we would have the surgical intervention, which is we call method exploration. It basically has two types. Either it has canal wall down procedure or canal wall up procedure. The main difference between that is in canal wall down procedure, there is a posterior meatal wall. which is removed in the canal wall, which we need to down, put it down, or continuously drill it in the case of canal wall down procedure, while in the case of canal wall up procedures, intact canal wall. This is the main difference. And in canal wall down procedure, we would have modified radical mastectomy that we are doing in our theaters. Radical mastectomy is doing very rarely, only in few conditions, while you need to definitely learn the indications for modified and radical mastectomy. We will discuss in the lecture. And then after doing these two procedures are for to make the ear safe. But then after that, we need to go for reconstructive surgery, that is tympanoplasty, to restore or preserve the hearing in those patients. And conservative treatment has very limited role in the case of anticoagulant because it is associated with the complication. We need to save the person. So, and done in only elderly patients above 65, those unfit for general anesthesia, because these procedures are should be done under the general anesthesia, and those who refuse surgery. So these are the three conditions in which we can offer conservative treatment to the patient. And polyps and condition can be removed. In this case, conservative treatment includes oral toilet, continuous oral toilet, there is acute infection, or keep the ear dry. This is basically, you can see there is a cavity formation in the case with the external layer. And in this condition, the most in this test, the most important thing which you want to preserve is facial nerve. So we need to know the whole anatomy of the ear, posterior ear canal, so that then only we can do this. So comparison of two procedures and canal wall up procedure, the canal wall down. And the natus, normal appearance, widely open natus, communicating with the rhythm after having these operations. It would be dependent, does not require routine cleaning. Depends on the doctor for cleaning mastoid cavity once or twice a year. Recurrence or residual disease, high rate of recurrent or residual cholesteatoma, and low rate of recurrence does a safe procedure. Second look surgery required after 6 months to rule out cholesteatoma. If there is any underlying cholesteatoma present there, then we need to go for another surgery. And in this case, in Alva now, we don't need any other procedure. Patient limitation, no limitation allowed swimming. Swimming not allowed may lead to infection. Auditory rehabilitation, easy to wear a hearing aid. Problems in fitting hearing aid in this case, because there is a continuous discharge coming out, and so. So what are impending signs of otogenic intracranial complications? These are features. First is a pain. Its presence is serious. Whenever the patient comes, because in the most of the cases, chronic suppurative diarrhea, their patients won't present with the pain. But whenever the pain present, then it is present serious and may indicate extradural abscess, perisinus abscess, or vein abscess. Vertigo, yes. Presentation would be vertigo. These are the basically impending signs of the intracranial complications. So patient can present with the vertigo. Their fistula test should always be done. Persistent headache is suggestive of intracranial complication. Facial weakness, of course, indicate erosion of the facial canal. A less child refusing to take feed and easily going to sleep indicate extradural abscess. Fever, nausea, vomiting, these will show the intracranial infection. And meningitis, of course, neck rigidity and irritability. And then in the case sometimes diplopia. This is a Grady-Negos sign. Sometimes scenario would come with these features. Triad of chronic suppurative otitis media, retroocular pain, that is involvement of fifth nerve, and diplopia, involvement of the sixth nerve. And sometimes presentation would be ataxia, of course, labyrinthitis, we need to rule out, or cerebellar abscess. And abscess around the ear, mastocytis, could also be present. So, sequel of otitis media, these are direct result of middle ear infection and should be differentiated from complication of otitis media, that is operation of tympanic membrane, ossicular erosion, atelectasis, and adhesive otitis media, tympanosclerosis, cholesteatoma formation, conductive deafness due to ossicular erosion or fixation, and sensorineural hearing loss. And one of the conditions which is also present, and another condition is tuberculous otitis media. Basically, again, etiology would come that the patient is having pulmonary tuberculosis, and this would come retrograde via the eustachian tube, and sometimes bloodborne also, because patient is having problem in lungs, sometimes tonsils, cervical nose, seen in children, young adults. Underlying pathology, tubercles in the submucous layer of the middle ear cleft may caseate. Caseation is the feature of the tuberculous media. So painless necrosis and membrane, multiple perforations, they caseate to form either they coalesce together to form a big perforation and caries of bone sometimes, and this will cause definitely complication like mastocytitis, facial paralysis. These might be the presentation of the patient. So clinical features are painless ear discharge, it is found foul smelling, multiple perforations are present, deafness, severe and conductive OB, and then facial paralysis presenting feature in the child. Diagnosis, culture of ear swab for acid fast bacilli, histopath examination of granulations, X-ray chest. Treatment, systemic anti-tuberculosis therapy, locally oral toilet, antibiotic to control secondary pathogenic infection, mastoid surgery for complication, and reconstructive surgery definitely after anti-tuberculosis therapy. If you have any question, please to ask.